And welcome back, and thank you so much for joining me in today's video. I have an update for you guys regarding the Colorado housing market. I'm going to be touching on home prices, housing inventory, and of course, much more in today's video. This is based on a report from the Colorado Association of Realtors that was just posted a few days ago for the month of February. And with that said, let's go ahead and dive right in. I have a lot to share. According to the Colorado Association of Realtors, with potential sellers sitting tight on their low rates and also buyers very skeptical regarding rising interest rates and reduced buying purchasing power, housing markets across the Denver metro area and state continue to take a much needed breather in the month of February. So this is based on data for February. So a very important thing to note regarding that, when I'm talking about any metric in today's video regarding closed home sales, this is based on what the Colorado housing market was like back in mid-December through January, which by the way, in mid-December through January, rates hovered around 6% to around 6.5% for average 30-year fixed. Mortgages, of course. Right now, at the time of this video, which is in mid-March, rates right now are averaging around 7%. So in other words, we won't see the true impacts regarding these rates at about 7% until we see April and May's stats. So of course, stay tuned. I'll definitely keep posted regarding the latest trends in the Colorado housing market. Also, according to their Housing Affordability Index for February, which of course is a measure of how affordable houses are in the region based on interest rates, home prices, and of course the median income by county, their reports are showing that after 3 consecutive months of slight improvements, housing affordability fell once again in February. And of course, this continues to be a major issue for many potential home buyers across the state. So speaking of that, in the Denver metro area, year over year, the median sold price in Denver has decreased by 2.5%. That's going from $560,000 back in February 2022. Now it's $546,260, a decrease of 2.5%. Also, look at this. Days in the market has increased from 17 days from 12 months ago. Now it's 50 days. Days in the market increased from 17 days to 50 days. So by my dumb math, that's an increase of 194% over the past 1 year regarding days in the market. Also, the month supply of inventory has more than quadrupled, going from 0.3 months to 1.1 months. There's also 17% fewer new listings year over year, and also 15% fewer houses that sold as well. In Denver County, it's a single family median home sold price decreased by 6.5%. So home prices compared to 1 year ago are down by 6.5% in Denver County, and in Denver Metro down by 2.5%. Also in Denver County, single family home sold prices are now at $615,000. That's down from $750,000 back in April of 2022. And by my dumb math, that's a decrease of 18% in home sold prices compared to last year's peak. All right, let's talk about a high-level overview about what's happening right now in the Colorado housing market, at least for the month of February compared to last month and also compared to 1 year ago. So new listings in the state of Colorado, again, only for single family, have decreased by 19.6%. So approximately 20% fewer new listings compared to February of 2022. And by the way, I'm going to share some additional details regarding each of these metrics here in just a little bit. But this is just a high-level overview right now. Meanwhile, pending home sales decreased by 8.7%. Approximately 8.7% fewer contracts being signed between buyers and sellers. One thing I did note, which I'll touch on here in just a little bit, is that contracts signed have now increased for 2 consecutive months. That is actually normal because we do see an increase of activity for home sellers as well as home buyers after December. Entirely normal to see an increase of contracts being signed. However, though, it's important to note that even though it has increased for 2 consecutive months, we're still down by about 9% compared to 12 months ago. We also saw that for closed home sales as well, because we saw a slight increase from January, but we're still down by about 20% compared to February of 2022. Also, home sold prices also increased in February compared to January. But when you look at this though, year over year in the state of Colorado, it's down by 3.4%, going from $555,000 to $536,000. Also, for the percent of list price received, this, by the way, is based on the final asking price. So it more or less excludes any price reductions. So the average sale price to final list price ratio for February was 98.5%. 1 year ago, it was 103%. So 1 year ago, houses on average in the state of Colorado were selling for about 3% over the seller's final asking price. Now they're selling for approximately 1.5% below asking. Now here's something very important that you guys should be aware of as well, because they have what's called their Housing Affordability Index, or their HAI. That was 65 back in February last year, and now it's 53, a decrease of 18.5%. This means, this is very important because prices have decreased again by 3.4%. So the median sold price is down by about 3% compared to 12 months ago. But despite this, housing affordability is worse right now compared to 1 year ago. And this, of course, is because we're not seeing wage gains skyrocket, but more importantly, we're seeing mortgage rates absolutely skyrocket, going from about 4% compared to 12 months ago. Now they're hovering around 7%. So in other words, even though home prices have been more or less decreasing ever since April of last year, the surge in mortgage rates is causing a lack of housing affordability in Colorado and frankly across the nation. In regards to the number of houses for sale or housing inventory, that has surged by 59.3%. Now, having said that, look at this chart here. Now, I'll go over this a little in more details here in just a little bit. But we're looking at this here, housing inventory in the state of Colorado has decreased for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 consecutive months. But despite this, we're still up by about 59%. And also, speaking of housing inventory, the month supply is sitting at 1.4 months, an increase of 100% from February last year when it was only 0.7 months. In regards to townhomes and condos, I actually want to touch on this very, very briefly. Feel free to pause and screenshot if you guys want. New listings are down by 22%, a huge decrease of contracts being signed, down by 15%, and a giant decrease of closed home sales, or closed townhomes and condo home sales, down by 28%. Home sold prices have increased by 3.8%, whereas for single family, they're down by 3.4%. And again, just like for single family houses, huge increases of days in the market, a huge decrease of housing affordability, and giant increase of housing inventory as well. An increase of almost 57% in the number of condos and townhomes from 1 year ago. All right, let's take a step back and talk about each of these metrics here and how this compares to years past going back to 2010. This is very, very important because when talking about year over year stats, that really doesn't tell us the full story. I really want to focus on how this year compares to years past, especially compared to pre-COVID levels. So again, new listings are down by 19.6% for single family houses. Only 5,271 single family houses were listed in February in the state of Colorado. Compare this to February of 2022, there was approximately 6,600 new listings. Back in February 2021, there was just over 7,000. Look at this though, because for February of 2023, when looking at this chart right here, it appears this is the lowest levels of new listings for a February going back to at least February of 2010. Let me say that again. The fewest amount of new listings in the state of Colorado for a February going back to at least February of 2010, as far back as this chart right here goes. To me, this makes sense. We're seeing this decrease of new listings given the fact that so many people have rates far below current rates right now. So for people looking to sell their house and buy a new one, why would they buy a more expensive house and give up their historically low rate? Obviously, there's going to be some people, but we're not going to see this giant surge of new listings, in my personal opinion, because a lot of people have historically low rates, which I shared this with you guys not too long ago. But according to Black Knight, which is a data analytics firm that supports the mortgage and real estate industries, according to them, as of March 6th this year, half of all mortgaged homes have rates at or below 3.5%. So of all the houses in the US right now who have loans on their houses, approximately half of those have rates at or below 3.5%. Again, rates right now around 7%. Also, 2/3 are at 4% or lower. So given these stats right here, it makes sense we have historical low levels of new listings in Colorado and frankly across the United States as well. Let's also talk about contracts being signed and new pending home sales. That decreased again by 8.7% from 12 months ago, approximately 5,700 pending home sales. Compare that to February of 2021, there was just over 7,000. Also, when looking at this chart below right here in green for single family, contracts being signed this February, compare that to previous Februarys in previous years, this appears to be the lowest levels going back to February of 2014. So just taking a step back here, we're seeing this decrease of the amount of people who are listing their homes for sale, but also a decrease of buyers signed contracts as well. A decrease in new supply and also a decrease in home buying demand as well. So that was pending home sales, a measure of contracts being signed between buyers and sellers. Let's also talk about closed home sales, which again is a lagging indicator what our housing market was like approximately 1 to 2 months ago. Sold listings decreased by 20% year over year, approximately 4,231 this February. Compare this to last February, approximately 5,300. Back in February 2021, it was approximately 5,700. And at 4,231, look at this chart right here. This is actually the lowest number of closed home sales in Colorado for a February, going back to February of 2014. And also looking at 2019 as well as 2020, obviously pre-COVID, back then, which is this a second dot after this line, it would actually be really great if they actually provided a red dot for February, so it's very easy to see each of these years. Anyways, just kind of eyeballing this for February 2019, which is right here, and February of 2020, it appears that closed home sales back then was approximately 5,000. Again, this year, only 4,231. Let's also talk about home prices in Colorado. The median sold price this February was $536,000. Compare this to April of 2022, which by the way, that was their all-time record high at $600,000. That means that home sold prices in the state of Colorado have decreased by 11% going back to April last year. Again, a 11% decrease in home sold prices going back to April last year, which is more or less on par with the national average, with a decrease of about 10% on national level. Also compared to 12 months ago, home sold prices have decreased by 3.4%. One more thing I do want to mention regarding home sold prices in Colorado, that back in February 2022 compared to February of 2021, home sold prices for single family houses increased by 19.4%. Back in 2021 compared to February of 2020, prices increased by 13.1%, whereas this year they decreased by 3.4%. What a difference 1 to 2 years makes. One thing I do want to mention is that if you're a buyer looking to buy a house in Colorado, obviously it's a step in the right direction to see us decrease by about 11% since April and a decrease of about 3% compared to 12 months ago. However, though, when looking at prices today, or I should say for February this year, compared to February of 2021, they're still up by about 15%. This is because back in February 2021, the median sold price was $465,000. Now it's $536,000. In addition, you couple that with the increase in rates. Back in February 2021, rates were about 3%. Now again, rates are averaging about 7%. They also provided a chart at the bottom here as well, because again, right now, $536,000. Back in, let's say, January 2019, the median sold price in Colorado was actually just under $400,000 back in January 2020, or I should say February of 2020. It was actually just over $400,000. So if you're a home buyer looking to buy a house in Colorado, we have a long ways to go in order to get to pre-COVID levels regarding home prices here. And of course, time will tell if we'll ever get there as well. Let's also talk about, let's talk about this. The percent of list price received. Again, this is based on the average sale price to final list price ratio, which again for February was 98.5%, meaning houses selling for about 1.5% below asking, whereas compare this to 1 year ago, they were selling for about 3% over. Something else you guys should be aware of as well is that for the past 7 months in a row, on average, houses were selling for less than the seller's final asking price. Now, this is so much different compared to the spring months of 2022. Back then, houses on average were selling for over asking by about 4 to 5%. Now they're selling for about 2% below asking. What a difference 1 year makes. Also, in regards to housing affordability in Colorado, the current levels right now, which is an index that they have, is at 53, a decrease of 18.5% compared to 12 months ago. Also, when looking at this chart right here, this appears to be very, very close to all-time record lows that we saw back in 2022 when the index was around 50. Now, this is much different compared to 2020 as well as 2019, because back then at this time, their index was actually just under 100. Now it's at 53. Let's also talk about housing inventory, because housing inventory increased by 59.3%. 9,000 houses for sale in Colorado. Compare that to levels last year, there was 5,707. And look at this, back in February 2021, compared to February 2020, they had a decrease of 50% in the number of houses for sale. Then in 2022, a decrease of 16%. And now it's an increase of 59%. Now here's something that's very, very important as well. Look at this, at 9,000 houses for sale right now. This is well above 2022 as well as 2021 at this time. But compare this to pre-COVID levels. Back in, let's call it February of 2020, there was approximately, 14,000 houses for sale. Now there's 9,000. Back in February of 2019, there was also approximately 15,000 houses for sale. Now again, only 9,000. So when talking about housing supply, compare this to the past couple of years, we have a lot more houses for sale. But compare this to historical averages, we're way below historical norms. What's interesting to me regarding this is that even though we have far fewer houses for sale compared to pre-COVID levels, the housing market in Colorado is still slowing down big time, as we can see by these metrics in today's video. And with that said, please comment below with your biggest takeaways from today's video. Also, if you guys got any value out of this video whatsoever, then please hit the like button. We appreciate that. Of course, appreciate you. Hope you guys have an awesome day. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.